But over the years, I emigrated. I went to Canada, the US, and I suppose I got involved with sustainability about 25 years ago. I met an architect from Kansas City who's still my mentor to this day, Bob Berkebile, a wonderful man. And we were talking about a building in Vancouver at the time at the university, and could we design a building that had no connections to the grid, no sewer, no power, no steam, and in fact we did that in the end. We had composting toilets in that building, famous building called the CK Joy building. So that kind of put me on this green journey, and that's 25 years ago, and I kept on learning and doing and learning and doing. And literally 13 years ago, I was at a crossroads in my career, and I thought, I think what I need to do next. In fact, a young student of mine said, "Kevin, you spent the last 10 years building the interesting green buildings through World Green Building Council and UK Green Building Council and USGBC and Canada GBC. I was active in most of those, and he said, "You should go and build a great firm." He said, "Because you've built the demand, but there's a lack of capacity." So that's what led me to start the Integral Group 13 years ago. And it literally was me with an idea or a set of ideas about what I wanted to do, what we should do. West Coast US, California, particularly where I'd moved to, very progressive. The first energy code in the world, Title 24 in California, going back to the 70s oil crisis. Has led this 50-year legacy, 60-year legacy of, sustainable buildings, solar design, renewables, etc. And the state itself has always been progressive, and the cities are very progressive, people are progressive. But I'd always come back to the UK. I mean, I was born in the north of England in Leeds and left, but would always come back. I kept very close to CBSE. Over the years, I would write articles from time to time, and became a fellow a number of years ago. And I really think that as an institution, CBSE has done a lot more, in my opinion, than its American counterpart at moving the needle. But I think at the time, that I was getting these thoughts together, what I really wanted to do is connect where I was living, I'd still live today, the global center of innovation, the Bay Area, the Silicon Valley, San Francisco, to the global center of design, which is London. And I think there's an absolute, when you fly between those cities, you notice who's on those planes. And it's these innovative tech companies, and it's these great designers, whether they're architects or industrial designers, And I from the beginning of building Integral, we needed to have this partnership between those two worlds, because they could help each other. And that's what we've been doing ever since. So from the beginning, I wanted a global firm, not just a West Coast US firm or an American firm. For me, it had to be global to make the changes that we needed and have the influence that we wanted. So from the beginning, I was interested in finding a person or some people in the UK, and became aware of Elementa about 9 years ago. And I flew into London. We met at a private club near Marble Arch, and I think 5 minutes later we shook hands, and Elementa were joining Integral. And the reason to this day that we keep the name separate is in the UK there's another firm called Integral, and they're a very big FM firm, and they look after many buildings, and they've got that name. So Elementa, I think, it's a great name. I mean, it's the Earth's elements effectively, and they're the things that we're dealing with as we design and move towards this net zero future. Yeah, I mean, at this point we've got over 20 offices. UK was incredibly important. Washington DC was important. I mean, there's a lot of decisions get made in DC that we wanted to help influence. We have offices in Vancouver and Toronto in Canada, Australia, Melbourne, Sydney, and Brisbane. And we have an office in Belgrade. We think Europe, mainland Europe needs, or we need to help more with what's going on there. But Belgrade's an interesting place because it's not the same as France. It's not the same as Germany. And I think it's got a different future ahead of it. So, but these offices speak to each other as a network. You know, it's an organization at the one level, but it's a network that's trying to share best practices. You take a great idea from somewhere and move it somewhere else, and just raise everybody all the potential as quickly as we can. Yeah.
And you've been very active in the Green Building Council in Canada and the World Green Building Council as well.
Yeah, for me it started off with the chapters in the US. I was living and working in Vancouver at the time and got involved with this local network, and we started to build capacity, build friendships, and not long after I became a board member of the National US Green Building Council, became chairman of the board for 2. And that was the time when LEED was really taking off. So there was, in the history of the council, that was its busiest period. I thought the idea was so good, we should have one in Canada, and helped organize the Canada version. And then at the same time, I was hearing that people in the UK were interested in a UKGBC. So I flew into London, talked to some people that were interested in doing it, gave them my perspective, my experiences, and not long after UKGBC was formed. And these are all volunteer positions, and the culmination of it for me was chairman of the World Green Building Council, which at the time we only had 7 countries and didn't really have any money. There was, it's like when you're trying to run these types of organizations. And but I said, no, I think we need 100 councils in 100 countries. We need to do it in 3 years. So I set about, a bold and audacious expansion plan, you might say, and we were lucky to get some money from the government of Canada, from the province of Ontario, actually, that helped build that capacity. And today the World GBC, which is headquartered in London, and they continue to do great work, and they have, between 60 and 100 councils at various stages of maturity, and a small organization like that has become quite powerful because they were the conveners, the organizers of the COP26 building day, which was just last year in Glasgow. Yeah. And London, is, for me, honestly, is the greatest city in the world, and I don't mind saying that. Living in Berkeley, California, I enjoy Berkeley, but I think London's got a very unique position in what it can do, to help itself and help others, and so by helping the city, it's my little bit to help London and help the rest of the world, quite frankly. Not doing the CEO role, which I did for the first 12 years, I can really focus on what do we need to do next. What are the big ideas that really are out there that we need to fully understand, seize, and move on and move with. I think capacity building sounds like an odd thing to say, maybe, but everybody's got to be able. In the course of my career, there's always been firms, great firms, or individuals that have kind of led the way with topics, and great examples. We can all look back. BedZed in London was a brilliant first example worldwide of a net zero energy community. But at this point, with all the mandates around there, whether it's by the city, the UK government, all governments, all major organisations, to be zero at some point between now and 2050 or sooner, we're really at a point where everybody's got to do it. We have to. So I think it's about capacity building. It's about knowledge sharing within our own firm, and then between our firm and our clients, and then our clients' clients. So the whole chain. I'm sort of drawing a mind map right now of how is the volunteer work that you've done over the years, and we're all doing for the betterment of society. How can that be coupled with business and businesses? And I think the line for me is very blurry around what are those mission-driven activities that I've always done and now continue to do with the city, and what does Integral or firms like Integral and Elementa, what do they need to do to move forward? And I think it's this, we've just got to really upskill everybody and really fast. you know, it's as good as a firm. You know, we think we're a good firm. Obviously, we think we do good work. We like to think we do great work. We feel like we're doing important work. We're only so many people. So how do we get everybody, you know, to move in that same direction and much quicker? And I mean, if we get it right, the message should be, if you put less stuff in your building and you put smaller stuff in your building, it's going to use less carbon and it's going to cost less money. And that surely will drive, you know, the people that pay for buildings and pay for buildings to be refit, drive them in, you know, in the right direction much faster. So I think we've got to be able to get the right message. You know, I think, you know, in the last 2 decades, it's always been sort of an assumption that a green or a greener building or a higher performing building has to cost more money. And I think we need to challenge that. I think we might need to in some cases, but I don't think we're going to need to do that. And I think it's a literacy around the topic, I think, is where my main thinking is right now. Yeah. I came to London a week ago. Since I left, we've had record temperatures back in California. It's January, early February. You know, we're hitting 80 degrees in a place that should be 50s and 60s, maybe in more 50s. We had fires over the holidays at Christmas, forest fires. We've never seen that before. You know, we were really excited in December because we got lots of rain, and now we've had the second driest January on record. You know, so nothing's going away. The air quality and where I live, you know, we can't rely anymore on the electricity company, because if it gets too hot and there's a risk of, you know, lightning strike, which might cause a fire, or a short with an electrical wire, they have to shut down the grid, you know. So it means now we're in a part of the world which is, you know, regarded in many ways as quite civilized and sophisticated, but at this point we really can't depend on the electricity grid. So this is now why people are pursuing, you know, putting solar, have done for years, obviously, solar on the roofs, batteries on the wall, you know, electric cars in the driveway that you can plug in, which can be charged from the house or charge the house, so the electricity can go in either direction. These are becoming practical must-dos, not possibles, could-dos, you know, I think for many, many people. The urgency, I mean, I drove my daughter up to Canada to go to university in the early summer last year, and our biggest lake in California was almost completely bone dry. I mean, just to see it, and just to know that that's where things are at. So it is, you know, and it's extreme weather. It's not just heat or lack of water. It's when it does rain, it floods because, you know, the land can't hold it properly. You know, so it's. I think the general public, you know, my kids, you know, just finishing off school age, this is in their reality. This is their normal life, is the way they, you know, we're all experiencing it. So I think it's just all around you all the time, and of course the air quality. I mean, we're in the business of designing ventilation systems for buildings. It's part of what we do, but the understanding of what we have to do in a pandemic is on the one hand the other side of the coin is, what do you do when there's forest fires outside and the outside air quality is so bad you probably shouldn't be breathing it, and so I mean we've got lots of challenges. So I think that intensity, you know, when it comes to London, I try not to go over the top with it, honestly. But there's an urgency that I feel, you know, I need to impart on others that we're talking about this. And I think our politicians, I think our political leaders have really stepped up. And I think by making these announcements and these mandates, I think that's important, because that we need pressure from the top and pressure from the bottom. We need it from both sides to move this entire system forward.
Lots of work to be done. So, yeah. Kevin, thank you very much indeed for your comments.
Thanks, Peter. Been a pleasure.